also add the thing where the executive orders declaring everything that you can see here, every person thing that we have here is effectively the property of the federal government, and all it takes is a declaration of martial law, and that's it. We've had two laws which have been written assuming that we have a president who's working in the best interest of the United States. I think we need to start writing our laws so that there's an element of mistrust in the executive.
Speak into the mic.
All right, we need to start writing our laws in such a manner that they cannot be misapplied.
And ultimately, if you look, and this is something that that the country struggled with for generations, but clearly since September 11th, it's come up again in a number of other different areas. What is the role of government, and we've got constitutional rights in terms of our freedoms, our privacy. And the courts dictate some of that, and Congress from time to time has chimed in. We had a defense authorization bill recently where, over previous years there have been some questions about how individual freedoms are going to be treated, and we put some language in place, I think, that helped to reiterate, especially as it relates to habeas corpus rights, that American citizens have the rights that they have in the Constitution, and there's limitations that government has. And look, they had this debate back during World War II as well. So clearly it's been a debate that's been going on for a long time, and it's Congress's role to keep a check on the executive branch, and if the executive branch goes too far, in some cases some of this gets settled in the courts, but in some cases the courts have given latitude to Congress and the executive branch to make those decisions. And so I think you always need to have a healthy debate about this, and and if the executive branch goes too far, we're supposed to be that check and balance, and we ought to do that. Same thing if the legislative branch goes too far. So again, it's there are a lot of different issues on this front, and we continue to have debate. We had a very extensive debate on this a few months ago as it relates to the defense authorization bill, and you probably had people on three different sides of the issue. And ultimately, again, the Constitution is there as the ultimate protection, and Congress can't pass a law that overrides the Constitution. But at the same time, even if Congress or the President try to trample on that, we need to continue to fight to preserve the individual liberties and freedoms that we have in the Constitution. So I think.
Congressman, my name is David Abadie. I'm a resident of Metairie, a father of three. I've always had a job and pay my taxes. I thank you for the time to meet with the people of this district. I believe you serve this district well in areas concerning the Second Amendment, energy production, Gulf Coast restoration. I applaud your vote for the Federal Reserve Transparency Act and going after Secretary Chu and the Solyndra loan. My question pertains, what are you going to do about this country and where it's headed? Right now, these laws are on the books. Cyber Intelligence and Protection Act, HR 347, the National Defense Authorization Act. All three of these bills you have voted for. These bills do not take into consideration the rule of law established by the Constitution and Bill of Rights. One rejects the Fourth Amendment, one suspends the First Amendment, and the other approves the indefinite detention of American citizens without the right to a trial. This is in Section 1021, ruled unconstitutional by a federal judge. With the recent information about Obama's kill list and the military's use of tens of thousands of drones above American skies, local police forces being offered armed drones by the Department of Homeland Security, the United States is looking more and more like some kind of sci-fi horror show. I'm afraid that my children and yours will be growing up in a place more similar to Nazi Germany than the America that once was. To quote Thomas Jefferson, when the people fear their government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty. Right now, I and millions of Americans are afraid of this government and are afraid for our children. So, to reiterate my question, what are you going to do to help reverse this tyranny that Congress and Obama have helped create?
First of all, Congress cannot suspend the First Amendment. Fortunately, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights are there. In fact, there's a challenge currently on the First Amendment as it relates to religious freedom, where President Obama issued an executive order telling religious institutions and even private businesses that they have to do things to violate their religious freedoms. And that's going to be challenged in the courts. I don't think that the president has that right. I think the First Amendment makes it clear the president doesn't have that right, but the courts are going to decide that. Congress surely can't suspend the First Amendment. We fought on a number of fronts, including that one, to uphold the First Amendment and the rights of religious freedom that are challenged there.
H.R. 347.
Which is what?
It suspends the right of people protesting in any area protected by the Secret Service. So I can't hold a sign up saying Obama is a bum across the street from where the Secret Service is. It's up to a 10-year prison sentence, felony. You voted for this act.
You know it, don't do it.
You voted for this act. I have the right under the First Amendment to hold a sign up and say, Obama needs to leave office. We vote him out. I can say whatever I want. It's the First Amendment.
Yeah, nobody can take that right. How close you can come. Now, if you get, there is a limitation on how close you can get to the president if the Secret Service is protecting the president, no matter who the president is. Look, I might not agree with a lot of the things this president does, but there's a Secret Service to protect him. Presidents have been assassinated. That's why you have a Secret Service.
Needs protection from the
now,
side.
obviously, your ability to hold up a sign, you've got that right under the Constitution. Now, if you get right next to the president and the Secret Service says you can't be next to the president, I'm not going to tell them how to do their job.
The president's anywhere Secret Service is at.
But ultimately, if you look at the rights under the Constitution, they're protected. Congress
You're
can't
giving
take those
this
away.
dictator too much slack. He needs to be reined in. And you voted for bills that are open-ended and giving him the authority to determine what it is that it specifies. He's going above and beyond anything that you guys put in writing. He's determining what it means, and he needs to be on a short leash, and so does the next president. And you guys are giving him way too much slack because I don't have any faith in him, and I don't have much faith in the next guy. I'm afraid that they are using these laws to suppress the rights or inalienable rights given to us by God, specified in the Bill of Rights. You guys are giving them way too much slack.
There are a few others you mentioned there too that I don't agree with some of the contentions you made. But again, I mean that's your right and prerogative. But as it relates to some of the interpretations, a lot of that's going to be challenged in the courts if the executive or the legislative branch goes too far.
What is wrong with the existing Constitution? Why do we have to keep revising what is legal, what is not legal?
Well,
and you have done this
well,
in
laws
the
over
bills that you have
decades.
passed.
Well, and some of the ones you mentioned do not do what you contend, and again, that's I guess it's your right. It's your right to disagree. I support your right to disagree, but I also can disagree with your interpretation as well, and ultimately you make your decisions based on what you read and the people that you talk to that are experts, and you might read something and think one way, and I might read it and think it a different way, but ultimately I strongly support the constitutions and the right of people to have the ability to go and exercise their First Amendment rights. I do these town hall meetings so that you can bring them up, and sometimes we've seen things that actually point out areas where Congress needs to go and revisit them. And the Federal Reserve Transparency Act, this is something that you look at what's going on with the Federal Reserve, there's a lot of stuff we don't know because they have not been audited, and Congress has tried to get more information over the years, and they haven't been transparent. They're quasi-government institutions, so we got a bill to force them to be audited so we know exactly what they're doing. And actually, that just got out of committee the other day. I talked to Ron Paul on the floor last week about that. It got out of committee, and we're going to be bringing it up for a vote on the House floor, and I hope it passes. I think it'll pass with a very wide margin in the House. Hopefully, we can get them to bring it up in the Senate, too.
You're going to get it past the Democrats?
Well, I think in the end, if you force a vote on it, you're going to see a lot of people, Republican and Democrat, that vote for it. I'm a co-sponsor of the bill, but just talking to Ron Paul last week, he's got a number of Democrats that voted for it to get out of committee. So, it's going to be on the floor, and there's going to be a record vote. I can't tell you how people are going to vote, but pretty soon we'll know how they vote because we're going to at least force that vote in the House. Hopefully that happens in the Senate, too.
What are you going to do about the police state, the I mean, it's not just something in my imagination. I mean, these are bills that are being passed. These are real laws, and honest to God, Congress, the President, this government is scaring the shit out of me.
Try to watch the language, but I mean, look, there are a lot of things that scare me about what's happening in this country. If you look at the spending, the debt, the economy, what the Federal Reserve is committing taxpayers to, there are a lot of things to be concerned about, and we're fighting on a lot of different fronts. And again, some of these issues we brought up, we've had real votes on. Some of them haven't made it all the way through the process, but again, we're going to be continuing this conversation between now and November.
You're on Congress.
Right here.
My name is Ralph Diaz. I live in Metairie. First thing I'd like to ask the jury is try and get this jerk air cold to fire.